For any keen gardeners out there, these blood-red insects need no introduction, as regardless of their miniature size, they have gained somewhat of a reputation for mass destruction towards members of the plant world. These are scarlet lily beetles, and as their name suggests, they have a somewhat devastating love of lily plants. Throughout parts of America, Asia and the United Kingdom, members of the lily and on occasions of the fritillary family have and are being destroyed by these harsh and merciless creatures who not only gorge themselves on the leaves of these plants, but also lay a substantial amount of eggs upon them, which grow up to follow in their parents' hungry footsteps. These insects in many parts of the world are despised. They are hated by many gardeners and botanists, and the pesticide industry has definitely gained a lot of income due to these bugs. But these aren't the only insects that have been known to get on people's nerves. Moths are sometimes hated as they make a habit of entering homes uninvited. Caterpillars, like the lily beetle, feast on a great deal of plant material and occasionally turn up in your homegrown salad, and it is because of the problems caused by certain species that many people have developed a dislike and occasionally a phobia of insects. But regardless of their faults, they can be incredible creatures. They can show astonishing beauty, astonishing behavior, and they can provide us with awe-inspiring insights into their complicated, delicate and diverse world. For a large array of plant life that fills our planet, bees are an indispensable asset. As a bee travels from flower to flower, it feeds on nectar and collects pollen to take back to its hive. While doing this, pollen grains from one flower are transported to another, allowing fertilization to take place, giving the plant the capability to reproduce, and thus creating more plant offspring. Regardless of the bee's famous sting in its tail, it is very difficult to dislike these voracious and hard-working insects that fill our parks and gardens with their presence. But the bee's fanbase includes not just members of the human species, but other insects also. Hoverflies have developed incredible similarities to the bee, the most notable being the characteristic yellow and black stripes. Due to the bee's sting, many species will avoid direct contact so as not to get a nasty surprise, and the hoverflies, though lacking this violent appendage, are able to gain the same respect just through visual mimicry. As the bee spends time pollinating the large amount of plant life that surrounds us, other insects are also working hard for their own reason. Black and green flies spend their time in large groups, sucking on plant sap and reproducing to create gigantic populations. And this weird-looking insect, the larval stage of the ladybird, spends its time actively hunting greenfly, blackfly and aphids, building up its strength and fat reserves for the inevitable metamorphosis to become an adult. But it's very difficult to find an insect species that works harder than the ants, and at a certain period every year they are stretched to the limit as they prepare for an important and incredible phenomenon. Every year around mid-June, all over the country, when the temperature is particularly warm and there is little sign of rain, huge numbers of flying ants made up of males and virgin queens will climb out of their colonies to take part in a nuptial flight. The nuptial flight is an astonishing event where gigantic numbers of ants leave their colonies for the males to find queens from other colonies to mate with, and for the much larger queens to mate with other males and to start their own colonies. This seemingly synchronized flight has many advantages. Huge numbers makes it a lot easier for ants from one colony to find mates from another, and due to the many predators that would much enjoy an ant feast, large numbers can improve the chances of at least a small proportion finding mates. So the next time you see a huge number of flying ants leaving their colony to begin their voyage, think about how incredible and important this natural wonder is to this cooperative, vital and socially intelligent insect. That is, if they can bring themselves to leave the ground. In almost every environment on Earth, flies can be easily found in huge populations, and in woodlands like this one, there is no exception. Although bothersome for many, the sight of huge fly numbers in nature reserves tends to be a good sign, as it shows that the area is very healthy and is an appropriate environment for these and other invertebrates. It also provides a keen nature lover with some wonderful insights into their interesting and sometimes smelly lives. During the warmer months, huge swathes of flies can be seen near stagnant water and thick mud, which provides a good area to lay eggs. But before then, they have to mate, and some fly species have some rather interesting mating rituals. The males in this fly species attract females by stretching out their wings and flapping them rhythmically, exposing the bright white markings at their tips, as you can see here. Once they have mated, they will then lay eggs, and when the larvae break out after a certain period, they will feed on the detritus within the water, but other flies may reproduce using different means. A woodland is an important environment that provides many animals with a home and the capability to survive and thrive. However, when an unfortunate animal dies, flies, in this case common houseflies, will make complete use of this sad occasion. This dead rat provides perfect conditions for these houseflies, as after reproducing, they will lay hundreds of eggs on it, and when they hatch, it is a brilliant food source. Flies also act as a natural cleanup crew, as their larval offspring helps speed up the decomposition process, although a hungry magpie can also be useful in this way. From what we have seen, life in the insect world can be incredibly complicated. But for these cabbage white caterpillars, their life revolves around one simple rule: eat as much as possible. As soon as these voracious butterfly larvae break out of their egg cases, they turn on any plant life that surrounds them, and for the next few weeks, they will not stop. Day after day, these caterpillars will chew and munch their way through a huge amount of vegetation until they become large, bloated lumps. Once these cabbage whites reach an appropriate size, they should go on to form a chrysalis to allow them to metamorphose into butterflies. However, the brutality of the natural world can on occasions throw a spanner in the works. This unfortunate caterpillar is being viciously attacked by members of the same ant colony we saw earlier. This caterpillar, like many others, has a number of adaptations that aid to protect it. For example, it is covered in bristly hairs that are used to irritate different attackers. Its skin also has a noticeable yellow and black pattern that is supposed to show attackers the caterpillar is poisonous. However, these adaptations seem to be having little effect on these ants, that seem adamant on killing it, to then go on to disassemble and transport the poor fellow back to their nest, where it will be fed to different members of the colony. But for the lucky survivors, a life on the wing awaits them. As spring comes to an end and the overpowering rays of summer fill the landscape, ponds like this can be a brilliant source of life. And it is at this magical time that one of the most beautiful insects appears: damselflies. These insects are a truly awe-inspiring sight as they dart from plant to plant and majestically flutter and glide through the air, looking for small bugs to feast on and defending their territory from others. These damselflies are new to this world, as they have only recently left their aquatic lifestyle for a life upon the wing, and for the short time they are on land, they spend almost all of their time trying to mate. The mating of two damselflies is initiated by the male clasping the head of the female with his abdomen, which fits to it like a lock and key. If the female is happy with the male, she will lift up her own abdomen and attach it to the segment of his body that contains sperm, making a very appropriate love heart shape. Then the male will pass it into her body, impregnating her. With certain species, after mating, the male will then let go of the female and she will then go on to lay her eggs. But in the case of these azure damsels, the male will lead the female to the pond, where she will place her tiny eggs into crevices under different vegetation. At this point, the damselflies are the true predators of the pond, as they fill the area with large populations that feast on the surrounding inhabitants. However, these insects are soon to be overshadowed by larger counterparts. Littered around this pond are signs of their recent dismissal from their underwater world. Empty skins that had to be broken out of to reveal their new and improved bodies underneath. Dragonflies usually arrive a few weeks after damsels and appear very similar, although dragonflies tend to be quite a bit larger, especially so with this southern hawker, and they keep their wings pointed outwards when at rest, rather than by their sides like damsels. These insects are hard to ignore as they race up and down, constantly in search of mates and possible prey, and can be incredibly maneuverable. They are truly the falcons of the insect world. On planet Earth, there are over 2 million species that have the privilege of being called insects, and of this huge number, every one spends its life living in its own unique and profound way. Life for these and the rest of the Earth's small organisms is incredibly diverse and forever changing, and this is what makes them some of the most brilliant and outrageous organisms on this planet, and life without them would not only be a whole lot less interesting, but a whole lot more impossible.